What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back in the video. As you all know, I work on the rankings every day just to make sure they're as accurate as possible. I also make sure I'm drafting every day. That way, I'm up to date in the latest ADP movement, and I can make sure that I'm actually drafting players based on how the rankings are at that time. Sometimes, though, I just don't have that good of a read on players, especially at this point of the offseason before camps open. So today, we're going to go over 8 players I can't quite figure out right now, and maybe you can all help me finalize my rankings on some of them. First up, Achane, which I thought would also be just a great player to open with because of the trade that just happened. Of course, Dolphins traded Jonnu Smith to the Steelers. That frees up 111 targets from last season. That is a ton of targets that will be leaving the Dolphins that they're going to need to fill. And at least as of right now, they haven't added anyone. It is extraordinarily likely they're going to trade for a tight end, but it's also almost a lock that whoever they end up trading for is not going to be displaced in the Jonnu Smith role, is not going to get even nearly close to as many targets as Jonnu was getting last season. So of course, this opens up potential volume for Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Achane. Now, before the trade, I had Achane 18th overall in half PPR. He's my running back 7. He's behind the trio of Drake London, AJ Brown, and Ladd McConkey. After the trade, I still have him as that running back 7. He just moved up right behind Derrick Henry. So Saquon, Bijan, Gibbs, McCaffrey, Genty, Henry. There was a little bit of a gap down to Achane again in half PPR. Now he's right behind Derrick Henry, and he's well ahead of the trio of Jonathan Taylor, Bucky Irving, and Jacobs. And I also moved him kind of ahead of that wide receiver trio as well. So I guess my question for all of you will be, how high are we moving him? In full PPR, he's ahead of Derrick Henry. It's just, you can't make up that difference, right? He's going to have so many receptions. He had 10 more receptions than the next best running back last season. Like, that is just going to be a difference that Derrick Henry can't make up. He is ahead of Derrick Henry in full PPR scoring. But in half PPR, which is kind of what we're going to use here for the rankings for just like a general consensus, I don't really know how high to move him because I'm a little bit scared his ADP is going to go way up. People are not only doing projections, so they're going to move up the projections like I did, but also just people are going to think through things. This was a 4-player offense last season. They've yet to add someone with super high talent. So when you take a 4-player offense, which is super consolidated, and you make it a 3-player offense, there's just so much volume. I think if you look, this is off the top of my head, so don't quote me the exact numbers, but you look at the target shares with Jonnu off the field, it is absolutely mind-blowing. I think Tyreek Hill's at like 30%. You've got Waddle and Achane both over 20%. Like, so much of the offense goes there that, yeah, all these guys are going to gain a ton of value. And I was really in on him last season. I drafted him in my one dynasty team. I took him in 2 out of 3 redraft leagues. Listed him as must draft on the website. He responded really well. 1,500 yards, 12 touchdowns, again, 10 more receptions than the next best running back. He was 11th in half PPR points per game, higher in full PPR. The big narrative is obviously, well, okay, but Tua, right? In the 11 games that Achane played with Tua healthy last season, with Tua playing at least 1 snap, he averaged 19.5 half PPR points per game. That made him the running back 3 ahead of Derrick Henry, ahead of Bijan Robinson. But in the 6 games that Tua missed, of course, he averages 7.7 half PPR points per game. That made the running back 42 behind Javonte Williams, Tank Bigsby, and Tyjae Spears. And with Zach Wilson being their backup, which feels just like mismanagement, right? Like, if you know this is an issue and everyone knows it's an issue, how do you not go after Jameis Winston in free agency? How do you not go after someone? It doesn't even have to be Winston, like someone who has some level of talent behind Tua. That way, if there's an injury, the entire offense doesn't become like the worst in the league. Like, I don't know. I don't know how an NFL franchise mismanages a team that badly, but here we are. So the question is, do we take on that risk at what used to be a late 2nd round ADP? What I can promise you is now going to be in a full PPR league, late 1st round, half PPR league, it's going to be the early 2nd round. Like, that's where he's going to be going redraft leagues. Again, he was going 17th overall on Underdog. That is a 3 wide receiver format that also favors wide receiver heavily because it is best ball. Promise you, he's going earlier than that on average before this in a redraft league. Now after this, again, he's going to go with the 1-2 turn in all formats. I get a little bit worried going that early because it's like, okay, take McCaffrey, right? McCaffrey's going to go right next to him in drafts now. They're going to go back to back. McCaffrey, everyone wants to fade because, yes, he's like a top 3 running back when healthy, but if he gets hurt, which he has an elevated injury risk, then people are scared. But it's like you not only have the risk that Achane gets hurt, you have the risk that Tua gets hurt. And I would argue there's a much better chance of Tua missing time than there is McCaffrey. So realistically, we should probably be viewing Achane as a much more risky asset than Christian McCaffrey. And Achane has never proven to be, he was running back 11 last season. Like, that was the best he's ever finished, was running back 11 in points per game. Like, McCaffrey's been running back 1 multiple times in points per game. So it's like, I don't know. It's a little bit concerning for me if we're going to actually be drafting him this early. But again, I would love to know your thoughts. I'm also just slightly concerned with, how they ran the offense last year with so many dump offs. And maybe that's why they got rid of Jonnu. They're like, we just became a dump off offense, jumped to Jonnu, dumped to Achane, and they just weren't pushing the ball downfield with these wide receivers. If they can start doing that this season and actually utilize their wide receivers, well, that could be a negative to Achane, who, again, got all of his value from the receptions. And if they bring someone in who can at least get like marginally close in the targets, I guess, and I don't think that's going to happen. But if that does occur, you could be sitting there with a second round or a late first round Achane and be like, maybe I shouldn't have used my first pick in the draft on this kid who's probably only going to have 11 to 12 carries per game. If they move away from this dump off offense, that could hurt him. Again, I don't know if that's going to occur, but that mixed with the risk of him getting hurt, the risk of Tua getting hurt, makes me concerned if he's actually going to go with the 1-2 turn. But again, love to know your thoughts there. Also, don't have a great read on Josh Jacobs this season. He was another player we were all in on last season. The public just like inexcusably thought he was cooked at 26 years old. Newsflash, players do not get cooked at 26 years old, especially when they've had multiple, they've had like a 2,000-yard season to their name. We were constantly able to get him in the 3rd round, though, last season. But after the great year, he's pretty much always going to go in the mid to late 2nd round in a redraft league. And again, I think that makes sense. Like, he had 1,671 yards, 16 touchdowns last year. He's only 27 years old, so still in his prime. We know the Packers are going to be an elite offense again this season. I have him ranked exactly at ADP, but I don't know. Every single time it comes to an actual decision in a draft, again, I've done 82 drafts so far this season. I've completed 82. I've started more than that. I have drafted him 1 time, which blew my mind when I looked it up, but it's just like, and I have him ranked at ADP. So it's not like he's just never showing up in the ranking. He's always there, and I just always go with a different player. I think part of my hesitation is that like so many things went right for him last season. And whenever that happens to a player, my gut always just tells me like, well, if variance would flow in their way last season, it could very easily flow in the other direction this season. And it feels like you're just paying an elevated price tag because they got lucky last year, but I don't get any of those points, right? If I draft him, none of his production last year is going on to my team this year. So it's concerning paying that elevated price tag. Because again, make no mistake, he got lucky last season. Like, Marshawn Lloyd was going to have a role. He gets injured in camp. He gets open to start the season. He has an appendectomy surgery, like things that were just outside of his control. He was not able to play last season. The Packers increased their run play percentage last season by 8%. They were the 3rd most run-heavy team in the entirety of the NFL, behind only Philly and Baltimore. Like, of course, had we known the backup would be hurt the entire season, play 1 game healthy all year, that they would go super run-heavy, that Jacobs wouldn't miss a game all season, of course we would have drafted him earlier. But my underlying concern is that, well, all of that might not go his way this season. Lloyd might stay healthy. They might not be the 3rd most pass-heavy team in the NFL. Jacobs himself might not stay fully healthy this season. And maybe even like, the addition of Golden just kind of shifts this offense around a little bit, shifts the touch distribution in a way that does not favor Jacobs. And it's also worth noting the touches are dropping. Even staying fully healthy last year, that was the 3rd season in a row where both his carries per game and his receptions per game dropped. He wasn't like overly efficient either. He didn't really have any explosiveness. 301 carries, longest run was 38 yards. And there were a number of times where, like, if he was an explosive running back, he'd have taken it 70 yards. Like, there were a couple times where he just burst through a hole. Nobody's there. And then all of a sudden he gets tackled for like a 20, 25-yard gain. And you're like, how did you not score a 60-yard touchdown on that play? He was 32nd among 46 qualified running backs in explosive run rate last season. Like, I don't know. I think personally that Lloyd was going to be that explosive runner last season, that he was going to mix in and not steal the role, obviously, but mix in more than the backups did last year. And even at times last year, the backups are mixing in and we're like, wow, there's a lot of touches that they're giving to some scrubs here. I don't think Marshawn Lloyd is scrub. I don't know. I'm just a little bit concerned. And given that everything went right last year and he was still 7th in half PPR points per game, that feels like his ceiling. So taking him at 9, I don't know. Again, he can produce there, and if he ends up the running back 9, you're still getting a good pick at that spot. It just concerns me a little bit. I don't think he has like a top 5 ceiling, and I would prefer taking him in the mid to late second round that he had a top 5 ceiling. Concerned about variance not going his way this season. But again, let me know your thoughts. Other 2 running backs I can't figure out are Tracy Jr and Skattebo. It feels like there's just a lot of opinions about both of these 2 running backs, and I can't narrow down exactly what I believe the most. Like, there are people who think Tracy Jr is going to be is already an exceptional running back, clearly the best on the team. Some people think he stinks. Some people think Cam is going to go out there and be this like amazing passing down back, that he's, going to steal his role as the goal line back, going to steal his role in early downs. And there's people that think Cam Skattebo can't even get on an NFL field. Like, there's just so many polar takes here. And it makes sense then that they're basically going back to back in the late 8th round, because no one can figure out who the top running back is going to be, who the most valuable will be in fantasy. I opened the summer liking Skattebo because he is great in the receiving game. He has the size and the running style to be a goal line back. And so if he can do well in those areas, of course, those are the 2 areas that give us the most fantasy points. And so that's going to be helpful. And since he was going a chunk later in drafts, it's caught up. Now they're going back to back, but he was going a lot later. It was like, all right, I don't really know who's going to be best here. I'll take the second one. More have kind of thought it over, though. The less I like Cam. He has 0 explosiveness, and that's what my model hates. So my model does not like Cam Skattebo, thinks he's going to be terrible in fantasy, and the biggest indicator is no explosiveness. He is a player that there could be a monster hole there. He's going to rip through it and gain 12 yards. Like, he is never going to make big plays, and that is a problem in the NFL because, if you're only getting what's blocked for you, you only have so much upside, and if you're never hitting more than 20 yards, you just don't have that much of a ceiling. And it's not only in fantasy, it's like NFL teams, coaching staffs want that ceiling, want that explosiveness. So you're not going to see the field as much if you can't do that. He's also great in the receiving game, but terrible in pass protection, which is a very weird combo. And it makes me a little bit nervous because it's like, yes, if he was great in pass protection, then 100% he should be going out there on all 3rd downs, all 2-minute drills, all passing downs, and producing well for this team. But if he can't pass block, it's like, do they actually just put Tracy Jr back there a little bit more, at least for one season? Because we know sometimes rookie running backs just take a while to develop in there. So that is a concern to me, where it's like, that's a big red flag in the profile that looks like a green flag, looks like a green flag, and that like he's good in the receiving game, but like he might actually be used in that area because he can't pass protect. And I don't know, maybe we're overlooking Tracy Jr a little bit. He converted to running back in 2022. He was a 5th round pick on the Giants last year. They went 3-14, 16.1 points per game. Like, if I told you that and then I was like, okay, yeah, and then he also had over 1,100 yards, 6 touchdowns, you'd be like, oh my goodness, that was like the breakout of all breakouts. Where's he going in drafts this year? Again, the late 8th round. So it feels like, that's kind of a discount there. 16th among the 46 qualified running backs in explosive run rate. Something, again, we know that Cam's going to be really bad at. 23rd in yards after contact per attempt. Like, you could just tell when you watched him, like, it's not that he's a great running back. He's not an elite running back. He's not going to be a running back that's like around in the league for a very long time. But is he a better pure runner than Cam Skattebo? Like 100%. 100% he's a better pure runner, a better running back. Maybe he's just a quality running back. Maybe they give him more goal line touches because he had, 4 carries inside the 5-yard line last season, converted 3 of them to touchdowns. So it really just is, it's going to come down to camp. And who do we think right now, before camp opens, who wins that job? And right now, again, I think my lean is Tracy wins goal line. Tracy is still using some 2-minute drill, and Tracy is the early down back. And if that's the case, I obviously want him over Cam when, again, now they're going back-to-back in drafts. But to this point, I flip-flopped so many times. Again, let me know your thoughts. Wide receiver. First wide receiver, can't figure out, is Xavier Worthy. I've been ahead of ADP all summer, And I feel like my projection isn't crazy on him. Like, I feel like it's a relatively normal projection. And then he obviously has a ceiling on top of that projection, right? He's the presumed deep threat on the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, of course, that comes with a ceiling. But every time I draft him, and I actually draft him, it's not like a Jacob situation where it's like I go to draft him and I always click someone else. I do click Worthy a lot, and I feel like I bring it up a lot in the mock drafts that he is a lot of the time the top player at wide receiver. But something in my gut always just tells me it's a mistake. I have him ranked as like that, turn pick in round 4 or 5. It's right behind DJ Moore, DK Metcalf. It's right ahead of Devonta Smith, Ted McMillan. Actually, after doing the projections, Waddle kind of jumps up into that DJ Moore range. But going into this video, I didn't have Waddle there. But again, after doing the updates, Waddle's going to be in that range as well. And I don't know, maybe that's why it makes me nervous, because there are some certified studs that I just listed off, players that we know have produced in the NFL for years, are great players, are going to be productive this season. And he's going, right ahead of 2 players that I feel pretty confident are going to have very strong roles this season. But for Worthy, a lot of it is still projection based. We think he's going to be the deep threat on Kansas City. We think he's going to be good in that role. But I mean, the man had 10.8 yards per reception last season. If he was the prospect people thought, and again, people thought going to last year, people who were really high on him, they're like, yes, he's a deep threat, but man, this kid's good at route running. He's so much better than these other deep threats they've had. They thought he was going to develop a lot quicker than he did. They really had to throw him into a short area role because it was not working deep downfield. And what happened last year? Rashee Rice got hurt. Hollywood got hurt. So you had Worthy sitting there. The number 1 role was just handed to him on a silver platter. And again, he didn't do that much. He had 37.5 receiving yards per game last season. Let's not overrate the rookie season he had just because of the one playoff game when they were getting absolutely annihilated, played relaxed coverage, and caught a few deep passes when the game was completely over. That's not conducive of what actually happened his rookie season. 37.5 receiving yards per game. Rashee Rice is back. Hollywood is back. I don't know. I'm a little bit concerned that we're doing a lot of projection here. Jalen Royal, someone that some people are excited about. It seems like he's a really good playing the screen game. Does he get some design looks close to the line of scrimmage as that kind of, I don't want to say third wide receiver. He probably can't be the third wide receiver, but maybe they bring him in to be that fourth wide receiver, do some screen plays, and just maybe there's just a lot of plays that we're not thinking about where Worthy has to be a lot better to actually produce at where he's going. And maybe that's why I'm being nervous drafting him. So again, let me know your thoughts on Worthy. Another wide receiver I want your input on is Jerry Jeudy. And this one's the opposite. I feel like I'm too low on Jerry Jeudy. I get really excited when he's the top player in the rankings, top by ADP, because I have him wide receiver 36 right now. That is a late 6th round on Redraft League, of course. And then 2 picks higher than ADP. So he composite ADP, because we don't have real ADPs right now. Have him rated out as a good pick. But, I mean, the man had 1,229 receiving yards last season, 90 receptions, only 4 touchdowns. You're on the Browns, that's probably going to happen. But even with only those 4 touchdowns, he had 90 receptions over 1,200 yards, wide receiver 28 in fantasy points per game. So, are we expecting that to drop? Because if you're going to fade him at the wide receiver 36, you're expecting a big decrease in production from what he did last season. He just turned 26 years old. I know it feels like he's been in the league for a while, but he was very young when he got into the league. 26 years old this season. He's the obvious locked-in starter, not only because Cleveland's playing him $1 billion, but look at the competition, right? Tillman's probably the locked-in too, but let's face it. Tillman is 1 year younger than Jerry Jeudy, and he has 563 career receiving yards. So there's a lot of projection going into liking Tillman. I like Tillman. I think he's a good dart throw late in drafts, but I'm not going to pretend Cedric Tillman is a guaranteed good number 2 wide receiver. He could absolutely be nothing. He had 4 good games last season, but those are only 4 good games in his career. There's a lot of projections going in here thinking he's going to be amazing. You have Deontay Johnson behind him. He's probably the locked-in 3, but he has 0 guaranteed dollars, up to $1 million he can earn this season. I mean, listen, would he have picked Cleveland if a bunch of teams were throwing money at him? Would he have picked 0 guaranteed dollars if a ton of teams were please play for us? No. So I don't think his future is really set in the NFL. And behind him, you got a bunch of scrubs. David Bell, Jamari Thrash, Michael Woods, DeAndre Carter. These guys are a joke. So it's a bunch of nothing behind him. I don't think they're really going to go out in free agency and go after anyone. And do we think the quarterback play is going to be worse? Is it going to be good? No. But last year, 59% completion rate, 5.9 yards per attempt, 2.9% touchdown rate. It cannot get much worse. It was pathetic last season. It'll probably be pathetic this season, but it's not going to be worse. So at the wide receiver 36, I feel like we're drafting him at his absolute floor, maybe lower than his floor. And sportsbooks agree. If you look at his yardage over under the season, it is 925 yards. Okay. He is a higher. We'll see after this. It used to be higher than Jalen Waddle. Waddles are probably going up. But as of looking this morning before the trade, he is a higher projected over under for yardage than Jalen Waddle, Jameson Williams, Jordan Addison, Rome Odunze, Chris Olave, Travis Hunter, Ted McMillan, Cortland Sutton, Devonta Smith, Zay Flowers, and George Pickens. He has the exact same yardage over under, receiving yardage over under, as Rashee Rice, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Garrett Wilson. So, I mean, if you think that's really wrong, I guess there's a lot of money to be made for you going against that. I'm thinking usually books don't put out lines that are 200 yards off. And I don't know. Look at the company he's with. Look what he did last season. Like, it all kind of makes sense that he should not be going as late as he is. I really think I need to move him up in the rankings, but let me know. Wide receiver that I truly have no clue what to do with is Jayden Reed. I just don't really buy that the Packers are actually going to keep all these wide receivers. Like, Christian Watson even seems like he's progressing really fast from the torn ACL. So what? You're going to keep Reed, Golden, Dobbs, Watson, Wicks, and Xavier Williams? Because, I mean, they drafted Xavier Williams in round 3. So I don't know why they would do that if they didn't plan on using him. So he's going to be on the roster. You can't be starting 6 wide receivers every week. And all of these guys are obviously good enough to where they should not be healthy scratches every week. Way too many teams. And literally any one of those 6, a ton of teams would be going after if they were getting a healthy scratch. So I don't know if they're going to go through the summer and be like, who do we want as the 6th or is the 5 that we like, and trade away the 6. Like, that's what they should do. So part of me says, okay, if I think that's going to happen, well, that's going to open up a lot more room than people think is there right now for Jayden Reed. And so shouldn't we be drafting Jayden Reed at this spot? Because Jayden Reed's obviously a good wide receiver. He's a very talented wide receiver. But then the other part of me is like, okay, but they had injuries last season. Like, they didn't have Golden last season. We had Christian Watson getting injured. Like, they didn't have Xavier Williams. Like, some of these guys were off the roster. Wicks was terrible. And they still just refused to use him in 2 wide receiver sets. He was only out there in 3 wide receiver sets. They refused to give him a large role. And you look at the production last year, 3 games. I had him. It was not very much fun. 3 games over 80 receiving yards, 4 games between 50 and 80, 10 games below 50 receiving yards. You had no idea when to play him, and now he has significantly more competition. So look at that lens, and you're like, okay, why on earth would I draft him? So I don't know what to do. I don't feel great about anything. I feel like they could do a trade, that he could finally move up on this team, and maybe it's him and Golden, and he's crushing because it's a great offense, and I look stupid for not drafting him pretty late because it's not like he's cheap. He's in the 8th round. You could look stupid for fading him in the 8th round. But then the other part of me is like, well, I mean, it's way harder competition than this year, and you hated him last year, right? Like, I hated having to put him in my starting lineup last year, so I should be fading him. So I truly have no idea what to do. Please help me with Jayden Reed. Last player to go over today is Cooper Kupp, which I'm pretty sure 98% of you are going to say, no, Nick, we're not drafting Cooper Kupp. Might be 32 years old, might be on the outside looking in age-wise, but he's never had fewer than 58 receiving yards per game in his career. Metcalf is gone. Lockett is gone. There's a lot of opportunity in Seattle. I also feel like people, I don't know, I did as well before looking this up, just forget how good he actually was last season. I mean, through week 14, what do you think he was? Like, think about that right now. What do you think he was in half PPR points per game? What do you think his average receptions was, receiving yards was? Like, how do you think he did through week 14 last season? He averaged 7 receptions, 73 yards per game, was a wide receiver 6 overall in half PPR points per game, 6 touchdowns in 9 weeks. So in his 9 healthy games to start last season, 7 for 73, 0.7 touchdowns per game? I don't know what the math is there. 0.67 touchdowns per game, wide receiver 6 overall. Like, he was highly productive in fantasy last season. So the narrative that's out there that, oh, he was cooked last year, can't do it. Like, how is that cooked? How is the wide receiver 6.5 PPR points per game cooked? What scares me, though, and why I don't really draft him very much, even knowing this, is that LA declined the contract, or like basically just decided not to give him a contract. So it was pretty clear that the Rams didn't want him. I would assume that if they gave him something, he would have stayed. Like, he's probably only got 1, maybe 2 years, but probably only 1 year left in his career. Seattle knows this with the contract this year. It's a 3-year, $45 million contract. It is not. It is a 1-year, $17.5 million contract, which is still a lot of money, but like the Rams gave $2 to $10 million on a year. So if they really wanted Cooper Kupp, it wasn't the money, right? They could have given him probably 15 mil. He probably wouldn't have tried free agency. They'd assigned him. Like, they could have gotten that done. So if they really wanted him instead of Tutu Atwell, who no one wants to draft, then they would have. So they clearly didn't. And like, who would know better than the Rams if they want him, if he's kind of falling off? So that definitely concerns me. It also concerns me that, like, I don't think Sam Darnold's good. Like, I think last season was scheme-based. It was player-based, that, like, any human being that is quarterbacking the Minnesota Vikings is going to crush it in fantasy. That's why we like McCarthy so much. I think it was all that. I think he's going to go into Seattle and people are going to be like, oh, yeah, we've had years of data of Sam Darnold not being very good. And that's obviously going to negatively impact Cooper Kupp. Also, play calling, obviously, McVay versus almost anyone. I want McVay calling plays for my players. So, I don't know. Probably a no, but I would love if someone in the comments could make a case for me for Cooper Kupp. Like, if you like Cooper Kupp, if you're like, no, Nick, you're wrong. Because he goes at the tail end of the players you feel confident in. Like, after Cooper Kupp and kind of like Raheed Shaheed, there's a cliff at wide receiver, and I don't trust anyone. Like, I don't trust a single wide receiver after those two go. So he kind of is the last of that tier where it's like he has that upside. He has that locked in role. And then it's a cliff after that. So please, someone, if you've got a take on Cooper Kupp, let me know in the comment section below. Please tell me the take. I want to buy in on him, but right now I kind of can't. So again, let me take on really any of them, but Cooper Kupp would be really nice to have some positive takes on. While you're down there, click subscribe. It is completely free. We have a great community. Converse with the community down there. Like the comments that are the best so I can read the ones that you guys also agree with. That will do it for this one, though. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all on the Friday video.